Welcome to Moon's Tavern. I'm Austin. If you could do me a favor, subscribe and like this post so you don't miss any of the content that we have going on here. Well, September is upon us. What a great month. It's, Bourbon Heritage Month. So we're going to really dive into some of these bourbons that maybe you haven't heard about. Maybe you have. I don't know. You can drop a comment if you have on some of the things that we're getting ready to talk about. But I thought it would be cool to talk about the ABCs of bourbon. Like what makes a bourbon a bourbon. So first off, we're going to go with A. A, it's got to be American. It can be made anywhere in America. As long as it's American, it's good to go. As far as a bourbon, one of the rules to be a bourbon. A lot of people think that it can only be made in Kentucky. Now, don't get me wrong. Kentucky makes a lot of good whiskeys and a lot of good bourbons. And I would totally understand why you would think that. But the fact of the matter is it can be made anywhere in the United States as long as it meets the other defined rules that we're going to go over here. So with that being said, I thought it'd be cool if I brought out some of the whiskeys or bourbons, keep saying whiskey, some of the bourbons that I really enjoy that are not from Kentucky. Some of them you may have seen before, some of them you may not have. Again, drop a comment, let me know. So first one we're going to talk about is Detling. Detling right here from Alabama. Great juice. Great juice. Matter of fact, I'm going to have myself a little pour of that right now, if y'all do not mind. Obviously, it's always great to have a pour with your friends and family and all that kind of good stuff. All right, so let's get into some bourbons that are not necessarily from Kentucky. First one that I really want to talk about is Detling. Detling's from Alabama. It is a wheated bourbon. Wheated bourbon just means that is the second highest in the mash bill. Corn obviously is going to be the highest one, and then your wheat's coming in right in the second. It is very soft. It is kind of dark. And what I mean by soft, I'm more talking about the finish. It's not an overly complex bourbon, but man, the flavors that it hits is just there. Really, you can tell that the Alabama, it being made in Alabama and sitting in Alabama, those higher temperatures really gets those darker flavors out there. I really enjoy it. Again, it's like a brown sugar date, or a brown sugar date plum. It's going in that type of direction. Very good. If you've never had dates, it's like a big raisin, but better. Definitely sweeter and all that kind of good stuff. Yeah, that's what I'm getting. Definitely get some of the caramel, brown sugar, date. I mean, everything that I just said on the nosing profile transcends into this bourbon. But absolutely great bourbon coming out of Alabama. You may not have heard it before. I would definitely go check them out. Good people, great bourbon. Absolutely the first one that I would recommend. All right. Well, your boy's from Virginia. Well, I'm not from Virginia, but I've lived in Virginia for most of my life. Bowman coming in here. I think this is one of Sazerac's underrated piece that's in its collection. I don't think they get enough love. Now, I might get some crap about this because this is Buffalo Trace's juice, or at least that's what it's rumored to be. But still, it's distilled 2 more times in Virginia after being distilled 1 time at Buffalo Trace. So, all in all, it is made in Virginia, and it's housed in Virginia. It's finished in Virginia, so it's very good. Would not sleep on this one at all. I'm not going to taste each and every single one of these because I want to get to some other things. And I don't want you to see a drunk Austin. It's bad enough you're seeing Austin as it is right now. But who doesn't love a bearded fat guy, right? So here we go. All right, so that would be my next one. Is this Virginia Straight Bourbon Whiskey. It's John J. Bowman. You would not be disappointed, I promise you. Next one's going to be Still Austin. Still Austin, obviously, from Texas. Still Austin absolutely hits all those characteristics of a Texas bourbon, where it's just, up front, it's very strong as far as has a little bit stronger, darker notes. Again, what I was talking about with the heat. There, it seems like that seems to transcend on any of the places that are in a higher climate temperature-wise. But still, Austin is not as high as like what the Garrison would be as far as that punch-in-the-mouth taste that I'm talking about. Some people love and hate Texas whiskey. Either they love it or they hate it. I've never heard anyone say, oh, it's just okay. Still Austin, though, I haven't met anyone yet that really said anything negative about Still Austin, just because it really transcends into that regular bourbon area. It's not nothing where it's real too crazy and just overpowering your mouth. So absolutely, I would recommend getting some Still Austin and trying it. Got to wet my whistle a little bit more deadly here. Okay, B. B's going to go in for the barrels. The barrels have to be newly charred oak barrels. That's what the distillation has to go into, or the distillate, excuse me, has to go into the barrel. It can't be a reused barrel. That's not going to be considered bourbon. It's got to be a brand new barrel. It can't be a used barrel. That's what some of your American light whiskeys are using. They're using some of the old bourbon or whiskey barrels, and they put it in there. Nothing wrong with the light whiskey. I like it. Sometimes it tends to be a little bit softer, but they don't have the distillation proof regulations like a bourbon does. So sometimes you can get them really, really, really high. It can be really crazy. Look at a mess. Whoop. After B, come C. You got your corn. Corn's got to be in there. It's got to be 51% corn. If it's 51% rye, then it's going to be considered a rye. Bourbon has to be 51% corn. So what really gives us is sweetness, and it just makes it where it's just has all those flavors that you love that really transcends through the corn. Apparently, I like the word transcend today. So yes, it comes through the corn. All right, you got D. You got distillation proof. So with bourbon, you can only go up to 160 proof, right? You can't go above that. You start going above that, you start getting into your vodkas, where they start really stripping out any type of flavor because they really want it to be a neutral spirit. Where bourbon, we don't want it to be a neutral spirit. We want to taste that corn. Now we're going to talk about entry, and we're talking about the distillate that's going into the barrel. Now you have some distilleries that like to have the lower proof, like your Maker's Mark, your Michter's. I would even say that someone that's in the middle would be like a Wild Turkey, where they don't believe in going up to the full proof of the 125 proof, which is the maximum that you can actually go into the barrel with that distillate entering into the barrel. So, you know, and it's kind of cool to taste different whiskeys or different bourbons that have that exception where they're very low. They tend to be softer, in my opinion, than some of the other ones. Wild Turkey is a little bit different because you get that turkey funk in there. And obviously, where it's being housed, there's a whole bunch of things that is going to depend on or help with that flavor. You go into Russell's single barrel. It's one of those ones, man, it's just good all the time. It's very consistent. Wild Turkey Rare Breed would be another one, very, very consistent. But, you know, you got your Buffalo Traces, your Jim Beams, your Heaven Hills, all that generally do the 125 going into the barrel. You know, what's different, maybe the Wellers go in at 114. But, you know, everyone's got their own little niche and what they do and what they like, and obviously have tons of experience of trying to do it. If you've ever tried to do like a regular barrel yourself, where I've done that before, where I've taken an old granddad, put it into the barrel, let it sit into I've got a little rick house that I made, that I painted and all that kind of stuff to really draw in the heat. I could never recreate what the distilleries do. It is absolutely an amazing job, and has a lot of love and care that goes into it. We're going to give you some of my Kentucky loves that are not as heavily allocated, that I think that is one of those ones that you can get all day long. I've already said one of them. All day long. I love this stuff. Russell's Single Barrel. You are not going to find anything that's on the shelf, in my opinion, that is going to meet up to this. I mean, with the 110 proof, it's one of those ones that's not going to completely kill you. It's an easy sipper. It is absolutely a treat and everything to sip on. It meets every single standard that I like as far as when I'm looking for something as far as a bourbon. It's not very expensive at all. Definitely one of the ones that I would say. If we're going to go for a budget one that you probably can find, JTS Brown Bottled and Bond. If you can find that, it is one of those ones that it is a treat. It's from Heaven Hill Distillery. I want something that is going to not break the account. This is definitely absolutely good, mixed or neat. I drink it neat. Majority of the time, I'm not a real big cocktail guy. If you see me drinking cocktails, it's either it's really, really hot. My wife will have me try stuff, and that's cool. I mean, generally it's I don't know what she uses half the time on all that, but it's usually something of not necessarily JTS Brown, but maybe Evan Williams or something of that nature. Evan Williams Bottle Bond is another one. Heaven Hill probably has the biggest portfolio of all of the easy sippers or sippers that are very budget friendly. So definitely, you're not going to go wrong with any of those. Another one, and of course, anyone that knows me knows it and should not be surprised at all. Knob Creek, Jim Beam Distillery, absolutely love them. There hasn't been a product from Jim Beam that I'm like, I don't really like it or whatever, maybe except for the white label or something of that nature. But it's great in cocktails too. You know what I'm saying? If you're going to do that. But as far as price per punch, 120 proof, you are not going to go wrong with this single barrel from Knob Creek. It's going to absolutely hit every single time. Very consistent. Never had a bad one. So that would be kind of my Kentucky non-allocated bourbons that I absolutely love and always going to be on my bar. Of course, I couldn't break this out without having a little sip of it. I'm not trying to get too toasty on here with y'all. It's always good to have a pour. Just have a little bit there of that Bowman's. Let's go into this again. Oh, yeah. I mean, you've got, and I might just be saying it just because it's Virginia or Bowman or whatever, but I would dare you to do a blind with this with a Blanton's or Rock Hill Farms or something of that nature that's going to be around that 100 and see what you pick blinded without knowing what the label is or whatever, or come in and don't even know what you're drinking. That's really how you really find out what you like and what you should buy. Another thing too is that's kind of funny. People think I'm crazy, but when I tell them this, but anything that's Buffalo Trace, I tend to get a lot of grape on the nose, which is kind of weird, I guess, for a bourbon. That's really how I can tell the difference if I am drinking Buffalo Trace or something that's coming from Buffalo Trace. What do you get when you drink it? Put a comment on below. Let me know. Am I crazy? Am I the only one that gets grape, or do y'all get that as well? Oh, yeah. It's just so balanced. I mean, Bowman used to be able to find tons of Bowman on the shelves. I think the word is out now that that Buffalo Trace is doing some of this stuff with them since it's in the Sazerac portfolio, and a lot of people are drawing themselves to it, which I can't blame you. I mean, we go around the corner here. I've got every single Bowman that is available, plus some of the limited. Was very fortunate this year to get some of the cash strength and the French oak one. Delicious, very, very good. Would never say no to anything that's coming out of Bowman. And they're getting ready to start doing a single malt, so that's going to be really cool. Met with the distiller on a tour when I was up there to pick my bottle, and he was showing us that as he was mashing into one of the tanks. So very, very cool. But I know it's Bourbon Heritage Month, not Single Malt Month, if there is a thing, but whatever. Well, anyway, guys, appreciate y'all stopping in. That's the ABCs of Bourbon. I gave you all this. I would give you the allocated, but I really don't feel like hearing the hate comments that's going to come with that. If you want to see that, drop a comment on there. I'll tell you my favorite allocated, which is going to be a little bit different probably than most people's, just because, taste is so subjective. Everybody's got their own likes and dislikes, which that's what makes the beauty of all this, right? But anyway, always remember to enjoy a pour with families and friends, and cheers.